This is a Scripps News special report.
A summer of brutal fighting. Ukraine slowly taking back territory inch by blood-soaked inch. Hopes that Russia would simply roll over, dashed in the minefields of the south and east. No major cracks in the Russian lines yet, but also no cracks in the resolve of Ukraine to keep pounding away with whatever the West will give them. For Russia, the battle cry is no retreat, and for Ukraine, it remains no surrender.
This is a Scripps News special report. No surrender. Ukraine's unsung heroes. Reporting from Ukraine, Jason Bellini.
Good evening from Kyiv. Ukraine now has Leopard tanks and an array of Western armor, but without air cover to protect those assets, the war is largely being fought on foot. Since the launch of Ukraine's make-or-break counteroffensive in June, we've spent weeks reporting near the front lines. Ukraine's military granting us rare access to the weapons and the men and women on the battlefield. As we found, the citizen army is mobilizing in one direction only, forward. Vuhledar, the word in Ukrainian for forward. Bohdan, a drill commander in Ukraine Army's 128th Mountain Brigade, and a veteran infantryman himself, shouts Vuhledar as a rallying cry and as a rifle fire punctuated reminder of the Ukrainian counteroffensive's marching orders writ large. Vuhledar, through Russian entrenchments, let no obstacles stand in your way, claw back your country. Bohdan considers Vuhledar Ukraine's only option.
There is only one way out. That is to go forward and forward, to be further, to be deeper, to be the first.
We were granted rare access to a training ground where elements of the 128th Mountain Brigade are intensely preparing. Here, 35 miles from the Zaporizhzhia sector front line, Bohdan leads a platoon through drills to improve, one, their chances of survival, two, their unit's cohesion. He considers both inextricably linked.
War is not the task of one person. Our training lays the foundation for teamwork, cooperation, love for comrades and sisters, as well as psychological readiness and resilience in crisis situations, and also non-standard decision-making in a crisis situation.
This unit is combat experience. This is not basic training. They're here improving their skills for how to get through Russian minefields, how to get through Russian trenches. Ukrainian forces are facing tremendous challenges in the slow, brutal counteroffensive, not least of which is the terrain. It's flat, open, exposed. When you're fighting in farmland, flat fields, there's nothing out there to hide around.
Throughout this test, we encourage everyone to search the landscape for any natural shelters that would protect and preserve life.
Bohdan knows the frontline realities firsthand. As an infantryman in a brigade that has already aggressively advanced in the counteroffensive on the southeastern front. The Ukrainian Army's chief general posting this video of the brigade liberating the village of Piatyhatki. But for the brigade's units on rotation to the front lines, casualties are mounting, amplifying the urgency and intensity Bohdan brings to this training.
It's no secret that the majority of our army now consists of people who were civilians, who came after the full-scale Russian invasion of our territory. They joined the ranks of the struggle against this evil.
This unit operates at the tip of the 128th Brigade's spear, hauling vital communications and surveillance equipment forward. Some recently mobilized to this battalion.
We look for opportunities, repeat our traditions, which have been handed down for almost 101 years.
For over a century, the 128th has trained for mountain assaults. But here on the plains of southeastern Ukraine, there are no mountains. Nothing to go around or over. Only Vapored. Forward.
For students of history, the war is full of echoes, tank battles reminiscent of World War II, World War I style trench warfare. But it's also a war where technology is transforming the art of war. We've seen that in both sides' use of drones. We witnessed it far behind the lines in a citizen-led intelligence operation that uses tech to map the progress of the war.
In a small office in Kyiv, two young men in their early 20s work the controls of their command center, aware of the outsized impact of the tiniest of changes they make to their war map. In Ukraine, they've become, in effect, the war's scorekeepers, their map monitored by generals on both sides. In a chat window, videos and photos flow in, showing missile strikes, Russian military equipment, and other mappable, if verifiable, intel. Every day, with each village and road fought over, the lines on the 600-mile front line shift, sometimes slightly, sometimes significantly. Shaded red, territory under Russian occupation. Green, areas Ukrainian troops have liberated since the invasion began. And blue, Ukrainian gains on the battlefield, the most watched color of the counteroffensive. Both sides in the conflict and the world are watching the map's every move. In the last 30 minutes, we received more than 32,000 unique visitors to the site, Ruslan Mekula tells me. Weekly, it's millions. The intel comes from many sources: Ukrainian civilians in Russian-occupied areas, Ukrainian military units, and volunteers scouring Russian social media. In the past day, we received more than 20 unidentified videos and 27 videos identified using geolocation, says Mekula. We also received descriptions of what happened in the video. For example, enemy artillery is shelling our positions, or Ukrainian troops have shelled these positions.
Who verifies the location?
Geolocation, he says. It's verified by our team, which consists of about 100 people. 100 volunteers, all vetted for their digital forensic ability to match images to locations. Deep State doesn't pretend to be unbiased. The map reveals only enemy positions, including Russian trenches, defenses, and command headquarters. For operational security reasons, Deep State does not pinpoint Ukrainian units, only the territory they've taken. We know many people on the ground, Mekula says. We're directly told that you can show this village is liberated because the guys have just returned from battle. Any new blue territory on the map raises the spirits of absolutely everyone on the front. Sometimes, he says, Ukraine's military leadership asks Deep State to hold off on displaying certain map updates. So there would be no undue attention, he says, from Russian commanders who monitor this map. The map has become, oddly, accidentally influential. Russian units that lose territory often try to hide that from top-level commanders. The ruse, sometimes aided by Deep State delaying a map update at Ukraine's request to buy time for Ukrainian troops to harden their position. Roman Pogorely, a 23-year-old law school graduate, says he and Mekula started Deep State a few years ago as a Telegram channel for discussing mostly Russia.
Have the Russians ever tried to trick you into publishing disinformation on the map?
The information that comes to us is checked very carefully, Pogorely says. We figure out what's true and what's not. The enemy has tried to hurt us in other ways. They've tried to hack us. We've had massive cyber attacks. They originally tried blocking Russians from accessing the map, but then they found out enemy soldiers used it in a way Deep State never anticipated. We found out that there are Russian soldiers using our map to go to Ukrainian positions and surrender, Mekula says. We didn't expect that in 3 years we would be really special. We would be really unusual. And just as unusual, we're invisible in some of our work, Pogorely says, referring to a version of the map that Deep State keeps hidden from the general public. It's only available to Ukraine's military and includes additional layers of detail. It shows the front and colors it according to elevation, Mekula says. In a war, a very big role is played by who is higher. Since the counteroffensive began earlier this month, he says the only time he's not here is when he's sleeping. But the mapping never rests. New details on Russian positions and attacks coming in around the clock.
Are there commanders in the field who are using your maps to make battlefield decisions?
We have useful functionality that gives the military better situational awareness of the front, Mekula says, meaning while the top commanders use their top-secret maps, troops turn to deep state for the bigger picture of what they're up against. In the south, how strong are the defenses? There are many dugouts, many concrete structures. The enemy is very well prepared for any offensive action, says Mekula, but it's worth noting that there's nothing that artillery cannot destroy. The deep state map makers hope that as the counteroffensive continues, they'll flip a lot more red on their map to blue.
Next, she went from power suits to battle fatigues and from the courtroom to the bunker. The dark arts of a warrior called Witch.
You're watching a Scripps News special report. Here again, Jason Bellini.
For all the billions of dollars of Western weaponry provided to Ukraine in places like Bakhmut, the infantry still must face the Russians head-on with close-range mortars, operating under the watchful eye of a woman who goes by the call sign Witch.
The commander of a Ukrainian mortar platoon, call sign Witch, barks orders to her drone operator, call sign User, on the southern edge of Bakhmut. She needs User to give her eyes on the target so she can tell Pidsumki, one of her mortar operators, it's time. Eyes focused on the monitor, watching, waiting for impact, so she can recalibrate for the next volley from her battlefield bunker in this rare view of how Ukrainians on the ground and below it fight the counteroffensive.
Our occupation is to defend our infantry, to make the fire in front of our front line. I remember this.
We met up with Witch, a Ukrainian lawyer turned warrior in Chasiv Yar, a battle-scarred village 6 miles from Bakhmut, jolted 24/7 by the sound of outgoing Ukrainian artillery.
We were just hearing a howitzer right there.
That's a big howitzer.
Witch directs her fire at the Russians from much closer. That's the marvel of mortars. Their boom may be smaller than artillery, but their impact resonates, especially large. Their portability advantageous in a war in which Ukraine's infantry is forced to move by foot, since tanks and other heavy armor would be caught in Russian minefields and artillery traps.
We can move very fast with mortar, and we can change our position, and we can give a fire from different places.
Sometimes she plays defense.
With our drones, we can see the corpses of our enemies, and we can count them, and we can estimate the success of our combat operations.
How successful have you been?
If 30% of our enemy is dead or injured, that means this unit cannot go forward. That means our work was successful.
Now, in Ukraine's counteroffensive, infantry units count on Witch to provide them, since there's no air support, their only cover.
The work on attack is harder.
Harder?
And
Why?
it's more complicated because we are moving forward and we have to be closer to our infantry units, and there is not a lot of firing positions. This is not so easy because our ammo is very heavy.
And of course the Russians are targeting you.
Of course. We are the main target for Russians. It's my job. I like it.
What do you like about it?
Now for me it's a time of revenge.
Time of revenge.
Exactly.
Have you been getting revenge?
Yes. Step by step, but we're moving forward.
There are many foreign observers to the current counteroffensive.
Repeat, please.
There are many foreign observers to the counteroffensive who are saying it's not going well for Ukraine.
Yeah, I know. Some people want to see like in a computer game. It's not like that. Meter by meter, we're going forward.
The progress slowed, which explains, not just by Ukraine's lack of modern fighter jets, but also because they have far fewer troops and less firepower than the Russians.
On Russians, 12 shots, we can answer only 3. But we can figure out. we make the bigger intensity of fire. By books, we have one mortar, one group. Now we have 2 mortars, 1 group.
You're a lawyer?
Yes.
How do you know about firing mortars?
I like math. Artillery is geometry and math.
Will you go back to your former life when the war is over?
I don't think I will go back to my previous life. I think I will serve.
You want to stay in the military?
Yeah, I will stay in the military. I like it.
Which, in war, found a world in which she feels more comfortable, better suited to thrive than her former civilian office environment.
My friends called me a tank. A tank.
A tank.
Because if I want to do something, I will do anyways.
And in civilian life, that wasn't always ideal.
Yeah, in civilian life, so, oh, you are a girl, you are a woman, you have to be more soft. Gender equality in armed forces is better than in civilian life.
There's still one part of civilian life that she values more than any other.
I'm a mother. I have a 7-year-old son.
Do you ever ask yourself, am I taking too much risk when I'm a mother?
I'm asking myself another thing. As a mother, I have to show the good example for my son. I showed my son that the most important thing is freedom and respect of human rights.
I have to ask, your call sign, which?
I promise I will tell about the story of this call sign, but after war, because it's a little bit dangerous to talk about it now.
Predictions from where you are on the ground. When is this war going to be over?
I don't think that war will be over very soon, because this is a very big process.
A long war of attrition, innovation, and transformation, from mother to warrior, lawyer to mortar unit commander, and citizen to soldier.
Next, clearing a path through the killing fields, Ukraine's army of sappers, and the dangerous work of mine clearing. More than any other factor, Russia's minefields have frustrated Ukraine's dream of a fast counteroffensive. The dense rows of mines are simply too big to get around, so you have to go through them.
On the front line, rows of Russian mines, densely arrayed, carefully hidden, trap advancing Ukrainian troops in the kill zone of Russian artillery. Kill zones already destroying some of Ukraine's newly received Western armored vehicles. Without air support, NATO mine removal equipment intended to plow the path for troops and tanks sits on the sidelines, lest the Russians spot and destroy it. U.S.-provided M58 mine-clearing line charges can quickly clear an area, but their range is limited. Grenade-dropping drones can help, but only for unburied mines. For now, human hands must perform the death-defying duty of clearing the way for the counteroffensive, those of combat engineers known as sappers, like this 29-year-old platoon commander, call sign Baran. Baran is the Ukrainian word for the prey-seeking monitor lizard. His prey, Russian mines and booby traps.
The engineering sapper unit moves forward ahead of the infantry. Our motto is always first, always forward.
Always first, always forward, but are you taking out one mine at a time when you've got thousands on a battlefield?
Look, when we go in and remove these mines, we secure the passage, a corridor. We give our guarantee that everything will be fine there. There's not a single mine explosive device left behind. Us sappers who've checked our road get into our vehicle and we go through, give our seal of approval, and then others boldly pass after us. That is, we do not just demine and say, go ahead and see if you blow up or not.
Baran shows us the deadly gamut of Russian mines collected by his platoon these past 500-plus days, including internationally banned anti-personnel mines.
This mine is extremely difficult to detect. You can see a lot of military amputees now, and I can guarantee that they were blown up on these mines. In this mine, there are 2,500 shrapnel pieces.
On the front line, 10 miles from this secret Ukrainian military training ground, sappers hold the key to successful counteroffensive assaults against the Russians.
Can you really be taking out mines when you have Russians shooting at you?
Yes. I can tell you 5 days ago we had night work in the enemy's gray zone. We did engineering reconnaissance of the enemy's mine barriers. We came under machine gun fire. The enemy probably had identified us. They shot at us. We laid down on the ground and continued to work.
From the start of this war, we've met so many Ukrainians who embody the spirit of no surrender that has kept Ukraine in the fight against all odds. People like Roman, a veteran of the Battle of Bakhmut.
Roman shared with us his video, a rare and powerful view of his daily reality with a tip-of-the-spear assault unit.
I hacked this life system and realized how to not afraid to die.
Since then, Roman found himself surrounded by death.
Just being hit.
Not just on the battlefield, but also in a pizza restaurant popular with frontline fighters on break. Many died in the Russian missile strike. The blast, like several others he survived on the front line, gave Roman a concussion. Yet again, he returned to the trenches.
Must be very careful because many surprises here.
Booby-trapped by retreating Russian troops. But the effects of his multiple concussions caught up with him to the point, Roman tells us, that he stepped back from the front lines to recover. He's spending the time raising money to equip comrades.
A young man battered by war, his body broken, but his spirit unbowed. And like all the men and women we met on the front lines, still crying, no surrender. Reporting from Kyiv, Ukraine, I'm Jason Bellini.
Thank you for watching this Scripps News special report. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel.